God in me, the love that sets us free. God in you, God in me is a light we all can be. It's the essence of us all, the whole of humankind. It's the source of all my good, the universal mind. God in you, God in me is the truth of who we are. God in you, God in me is more powerful by far than anything we can think or dream. It's the best that we can be. And so it is God in you, God in me. God in you, God in me is the love that sets us free. God in you, God in me is the light we all can be. It's the essence of us all, the whole of humankind. It's the source of all my good, the universal mind. God in you, God in me is the truth of who we are. God in you, God in me is more powerful by far than anything we can think or dream. It's the best that we can be. So it is God in you, God in me. And so it is God in you, God in me.
Thank you, everybody. That was wonderful. Thank you, Barbara, our musical director, and our wonderful choir. You guys always do a great job. My name is Casey, and I'm facilitating today. So it's the first time in a long time that I've done it, but I'm happy to do it with being live, being here with everybody. Want to welcome any of our new listeners and people who have come today who haven't been here for a while. So thank you so much for coming. And a reminder to please check your cell phones. Okay. Today's word of the day is prosperity. With God as my source, I live abundantly. No matter how much I have in the bank, the kind of car that I drive, or the house that I live in, I know these things are mere manifestations of abundance. The source of all prosperity is God. I look beyond appearances to find a deeper meaning of prosperity. Meaningful work that I enjoy doing is part of my prosperity, not only because of what I earn, but also because of the satisfaction I feel when I use my skills. My house becomes a home when it's filled with people I love and care for. My financial resources don't diminish, but multiply when I share them generously. As I look beyond the good things in my life to the love, the creative insight, and the limitless flow of divine ideas that brought them into manifestation, I discover true abundance. Proverbs 8:18, riches and honor are with me, enduring wealth and prosperity. Prosperity. My God, with God as my source, I live abundantly. Now we're going to do our mission statement. If everybody can do it along with me, and even the people at home, you should see it on your screen. We are
a loving, nurturing community dedicated to being a positive path to spiritual living, to awaken oneness with God within us all.
Just a couple of things to talk about. Please check out our website. It should be scrolling on the bottom, unityoftheseacoast.com. All our talks are archived there. If there's something you want to go back and look at, it goes back pretty far, a few years back. So there's a lot of great things on there. There's also, you'll find our donation button on there. And we use Tidely, and it's not anything you have to download. You can just click on it and make a offering if you really found some spiritual help in listening to the service today. Also, our mailing address is Unity of Seacoast, McConnell Center, Suite 246, 61 Locust Street in Dover, New Hampshire, 03820. Okay. Every month, on the first Monday of the month, Charlie does a meditation, and November 7th will be our next one. So we look forward to that. And welcome. And that's the day before voting day. So something to keep in mind. Please don't vote this year. Very important. We also broadcast live to YouTube on our YouTube channel. And you can just type in Unity Seacoast in the YouTube search button, and you'll find many past services on there as well. Now, next Sunday, following the service, we have a meeting scheduled. We're coming up on 6 months live here in the McConnell Center. And our church is kind of struggling a little bit financially, but we love being together with everybody. So as a congregation, we love everybody to just stay for that and participate in it. We'd love to get your feedback. We need to look at what is the future of the church, and what can we do to maybe attract more members, and just we really appreciate everybody's input. So hopefully you will be able to do that. And we're going to have pizza from La Festa. So that's a good reason. Yeah. Okay. So next we're going to do our Namaste. And Namaste is a Sanskrit word for the Christ in me sees the Christ in you. And we do that just by hands like this, like this, and looking into people's eyes and saying Namaste. So.
The breath of God is breathing me, and resting in the breath of God, I know that all is well. The breath of God is breathing me, and resting in the breath of God, I know that all is well. The grace of God is gracing me, and resting in the grace of God, I know that all is well. The grace of God is gracing me, and resting in the grace of God, I know that all is well. The love of God is loving me, and resting in the love of God, I know that all is well. The love of God is loving me, and resting in the love of God, I know that all is well. The breath of God is breathing me, and resting in the breath of God, I know that all is well. I know that all is well. I know that all is well.
Thank you again, everybody. The choir and what Barbara brings to the service is just so beautiful. And I love hearing those voices just filling the room. So thank you, guys. You don't know how much that means to us. So appreciate it. Next, I want to introduce our speaker, Tom, who happens to be my schoolmate. Um, I'm anxious to, not anxious, but I'm excited to hear his sermon today because even though we live together and we're both at home all the time, around 24/7, I never know exactly what he's going to talk about because I don't want to hear it all before then have to hear it again. So it's always a nice surprise. So looking forward to it, Tom.
So this is a treat for me. As she mentioned, she is my soulmate. She is the reason that I believe in a lot of this. And it's part of what I'm going to talk about back to basics. The reason I do so much of this, I talk about much of this, is because I believe it and it's manifested in my life. There was a time when I was down in Florida and we weren't together. And I had a visualization of holding her hand at a theater. I had never been to this theater, but I could just picture. I'm sitting there, we're watching something, play or something, and the building I see clearly in my mind and her hand clearly in my mind. A couple years later, we were at the Rochester Opera House watching, I think it was Chicago or something. And I'm not sure what this is. I'm going to shut this one down just in case. But as I looked down, I realized that image was exactly what I saw. My hand in hers at the Rochester Opera House. So I know this stuff works. I know it works for me. I hope that you start to believe that it works for you. I know many of you do, and many of you take bits and pieces of it. And I decided I was going to do a back to basics. In the past year, we've broken down unity in several ways. And part of the reason I do this is because if you don't understand what unity is, how it can affect your life, and my version of it, I'm not doing my job. We begin to look at God. We all have our version of God. But we start with, God is every known principle and every unknown principle. So what does that mean? Well, everything and all things operate based on principle, the principles of science and physics and such. And as we move through evolution, we begin to understand many of these principles. And yet there are those that we do not understand. You know, we get the principles that make up fire or how gravity works. And we even think we get stuff, but then we learn a new principle comes into play. You know, we've even learned that time may bend going around a heavy mass. I don't understand it. We understand electricity, although we can't see it most of the time, and most of us cannot conceive of creating a path which electricity flows. I can repair a generator. I still do not know why that process creates electricity. But we learn to understand that everything and anything works within certain principles. And it's through these principles that all was created and evolved. From the very first particles that collided together and smashed and simultaneously expanded, to all the principles that created evolution, to all the principles that we use to create with. These principles do not make mistakes. They do not think. They act and react in the same way always. The outcome of principle is what it is. 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen always makes up water. But those 2 atoms, whether separate or combined, make up the first building blocks of life as we know it. And all these principles and all this adds up to create stuff. And included in that stuff, that creation, is life. Somehow, in this mixture of all these things, starting from nothingness, life exists, thrives, and expands. Now, all these principles have been there forever, waiting to unfold until each got to do that unique thing that each one does, and everything evolved. So if each principle existed, then it flows naturally that every possibility for these principles to manifest everything, every possibility for existence and creation has always been there, just waiting to unfold and to manifest. Is that intelligent? Well, being intelligent is a characteristic of something. What we're talking about is intelligence. It's an expanding wisdom based on principle of what was and what will be. It's an intelligent design to create all this, for all those principles to act and interact with each other from the existence that we recognize today. But it's not a thinking intelligence such as human thought. It's something more than it, something more significant. There's a spirit that connects all these things to one another, that makes them react and act in the way that they do. Because you can wipe out all that we know, destroy it all, abolish the universe, but these principles will still be there. And what also will be the force that binds them to create and react in the way that they do. And that binding force is spirit. Call it what you want, call it source, call it science, call it spirit, call it architect of the universe, call it principle. That's what I call God. That's what I see as God. God is that non-thinking force that all thought comes from. God is that non-physical force that all physical comes from and expresses through. God is a non-life form in the sense that we understand life, but that all life comes from. God is not an idea, but from that which all ideas come from. God is every possibility that was and will be. God is a single verse, a multiverse. God is that connection to thought that we have, and the connection to our connection to others. God is what we use to build our lives or take it apart. God is good, but God does not decide good. God is always good because God is always nurturing forth the evolution of all, including us. God always nurtures forth the evolution of all. I want you to understand that. Because even in destruction, evolution happens. Mountains crumble and become sand at the sea. The physical body decays and becomes new life. So what do we understand is something that always nurtures? Love always nurtures. God is the infinite source of nurture. And if God is the infinite source of nurture, then doesn't it just follow that God is the infinite source of love? Or very simply, if all these principles, all that is, always works to move all forward in nurture, and that just means God is love. Now, at some point in this evolution, life began. Species came and went. Some became extinct, some evolved. And we know this because of fossils and bones and stuff that we found. Each species evolving. Evolution, according to Charles Fillmore, and I really think he's spot on in this, is evolution is the journey towards perfection. Creation is the inception of something. Evolution is the journey towards perfection. Humans emerged, created, and evolved. But at some point, something unique happened. Something happened within us. We became aware that we are aware. So many living creatures have awareness, but they live instinctual lives. We began to look at our past, look toward our future, communicate, and write and store information, and store wisdom to use for the future, for future generations. Evolution now became the unfolding of man into spiritual consciousness. This is a giant leap in the development of all. As we discovered, we can now begin to react and interact with all these principles. So if everything and all came through God and God principles, and we began to understand our unfoldment and how to interact with all these principles, and as we began to craft our lives, we began to become an expression of God, an interactive expression of God. Everything is an expression of God. But the difference between us and everything else is we became individualized. We are an individual expression of God. What's the main characteristics of this over anything else? We gained wisdom. And that's why I say that we are the image of God, which is, that image is love and wisdom. This is the idea of the Adam and Eve story. It's not an actual depiction of the creation of man. It's a representation of when man became aware. It's that moment in our evolution when we began to use freedom of choice and freedom of expression. Up to this point, we lived an instinctual existence. We did what all creatures do. We survived and thrived. We did it in the same way. Food was provided for, the same way birds find berries or animals find meat. We did just enough to move our species to the next generation. And that kind of life where everything is provided for is what the Garden of Eden represents. Eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil and such was humans stepping up to be proactive in our own evolution, and in a sense, proactive in the evolution of all that was around us. We accepted the choices with all the causes and effects that come with our choices. We learned to create some things for the good, and we learned to create things for the bad. Us eating from the tree is not the great sin. It is the greatest blessing. It is what separates us from other beings. It is the single biggest factor that moved us forward to where we are today, our ability to choose to communicate with our past, our present, and our future, and to use wisdom. We learned to create art and song. We learned to farm and cook. We have the ability to open up our body and heal it, to reach into another body or another species and heal it. No other creature has that ability. We can merge two plants together to form a new one. And more than that, we could pass this knowledge on to future generations. This evolutionary unfoldment has put us leaps and bounds ahead of any other creature or life force on this planet, and thus far, any other that we know. We are also the only creature that can interact and plan its own demise. But one of the things that we've learned as we move forward is that we have a wealth of inexhaustible ideas. And we've set our minds to something, we can bring it to manifestation. One of the things we discovered and are still unfolding is that we can act and react with all these principles, with these laws, and craft our lives in many ways. The law of attraction falls into these principles, that is God. We act and react with love, and love follows. There's that theory or saying that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. This is not so with love. When you inject love into something, the opposite does not happen. Why? Because love is the driving force of all. It is the nurturing force. Hate is not the opposite of love. It is the absence of love. The absence of evil, or the absence of love, is evil, but it's not the opposite. Because when you add love, these things can evaporate. I'm also sure that you can think of times or a scenario when someone acts hateful and you've injected love, but it did not change the situation. But that's not hate. That's not evil. That's that person refusing to allow love in, therefore keeping it absent. And there's another saying, like attracts like. People are attracted to commonalities. They're attracted to the things that they're familiar with. People are drawn to loving people. And people are drawn to what they know. Some people abuse people, keep finding abusive people to hang out with. People of similar skin tones seek out similar skin tones. People of similar diets or similar religions. But at some point, people started beginning to look deeper than that, to see what commonalities draw us together, what progresses our lives, what creates happiness within us, what makes us who we are, what makes us broken, but what makes us whole. People wondered, is there a way that we can completely interact with all that and develop our own lives? And then we began to look at life with these principles, and are we connected to them? And that's the concept of new thought, to understand that we are connected to something that is greater than us, and that we get to work with that in a loving, connected way to bring about a loving life that we crafted. This includes our mental attitude, our physical state, our material world around us. We let go of ego and strike a balance with it all. That's what Buddha discovered, and that's what Jesus understood. We discovered our minds could heal our bodies, and our minds could heal our mental status. We learned that living up to our best self brings about rewards that the material world could not. Early on, we began thinking that religion and science were ideas that were opposed to each other, that God was not science, and science canceled out God. But then some people began to look at these concepts as limiting because they felt God and science were so clearly present in their lives. And if that was so, then why can't they be connected? Perhaps they're the same. God is and science is. Just because we can explain something on a scientific term does not mean it is not God. And if God is science, then let's understand how we can work that to create our lives for the betterment of ourselves and the world around us. When people sought out Buddha or flocked to hear Jesus, I do not think that they came to study to live for an afterlife. People then and now want to learn how to be present, how to live a life of now. Life can be hard. People want a life of happiness and meaning. The afterlife will take care of itself. And it's this concept that struck the co-founders of Unity, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, when they heard Dr. E.B. Weeks talk. And he had that line that stuck with Myrtle Fillmore: I am a child of God, therefore I do not inherit illness. Because she had tuberculosis among other ailments, and Charles suffered from a painful leg that was shorter than another from a childhood ice skating accident. Dr. E.B. Weeks had been inspired by Emma Curtis Hopkins, who had been inspired by Mary Baker Eddy, who had been inspired by Phineas Quimby, and it goes on. But they began to study her works and her writings and study others. And they began to develop their own ideas of new thought. And they held gatherings to discuss their ideas. And they formed a prayer group called Silent Unity. Then they eventually decided to publish their ideas, and they began a publication called Unity Magazine, which is still in existence. And that published a rather large article called Lessons in Truth by H. Emily Cady, which became the book of the same name. And if you want a great book to start out with Unity, start out with the one that they start out with. It's just a wonderful book. And both Charles and Myrtle Fillmore found great success and comfort in practicing their ideas. They both healed themselves. And from this, they began a movement. Unity was not intended to be a denomination, but rather a way of getting together to discuss thoughts and ideas and principles. And according to James Dillett Freeman, the Fillmore's belief centered on two basic propositions: God is good, and God is always available. In fact, God is within you. They developed what they called practical Christianity, based on the use of thought and spiritual connection to God, living a life that they called living the Christ-like life. The word Christ is actually an attainment. It was not a title or part of a label given to a man. It was Jesus the Christ. And they believed that this kind of life is something that we can all attain. And they get this belief from the words of the man themselves: you will do greater things than I. We can add, when we add the word Christ to anything, it brings up all sorts of connotations that we've learned from our past. Some people flock to the word, while others just back away and dismiss it. Here's some sort of religious stuff. I just don't want to hear it. But living the Christ-like life, or connecting to your Christ-like nature, is just living up to the best version of you. It's trying to be connected to God or source, or whatever word you want to use, and be the best you in as many moments as possible. We can't do it all the time, but we do try and do it in as many moments as possible. The Fillmores believe that most of the answers of life can be found in the Bible, but it takes work. The stories of the Bible take a new perspective. It's not all literal. In fact, most it's not literal, but there's a metaphysical way to look at it. In other words, looking through a new lens and finding your new meaning to the things that we thought we understood. And in doing so, we can eliminate and cancel out the negative thinking and see our lives as more spiritual, which controls the physical by using a positive way of thinking. Many of the stories in the Bible, I look back and I could not understand. But I also remember doing this thinking, not everything can have a metaphysical interpretation. But what I found out is they may not, but it's an individual process. Stories that other people got, I struggled with until I saw it in a metaphysical way. I struggled with all the deaths in the Old Testament. Metaphysically, those deaths were meant to stand for the death of all the negative thoughts that we have. Thinking, there's so many talks of went up to a mountain or went to a high place. Metaphysically, those things mean raising your conscience to a higher level of thinking. And out of context, that may not make sense to you. So I don't want to delve into that. We'll work on that later. But I want you to think about this. What does all this mean for you? Well, first, it should give you permission to look at the Bible or anything through your own lens with a different perspective. I've always said, I don't want you to believe like me. I want you to believe the way you believe, because your belief expands mine. And that was one of the things that I loved about Unity, is the ability to discuss and share these ideas and thoughts and expand each other's. One of the things we do is we get to drop away the past, the influences, the past generations and past religions have given us about this. That includes all the things that you may have been told. Anything, anywhere that you've carried that does not suit you, you are allowed to let go of if it doesn't help you craft your best self. Because you get to pray and use prayer and meditation. You get to affirm your life. You get to attract anything into your life. And you get to co-create your life using all these principles that is God to be anything you want to be. You have at your mental fingertips all that you need to craft the life that you want. You get to awaken to the things that you know are within you. There's nothing I talk about every week that's not within you. I just happen to help bubble it up to the surface depending on what I talk about that week. That's the idea of practical Christianity. You can use the lessons of the Bible, not as a way of following a doctrine or rules, but a way of gaining insight and wisdom into your everyday life, to unlock what you already know, again, to awaken what is in you, to attract the life that you want to attract. Again, when I talk about the laws of attraction, they fall under this concept of principle. Why? Because it is something that works in exact ways that we can use in crafting our lives. Thoughts held in mind bring about in kind. Like attracts like. You ever begin your day badly and it sets the tone for your day? It's because we begin to attract that mindset, and we've accepted that for our day. And it repeatedly happens in our lives. Our thoughts, words, and deeds set us up for what unfolds as our life. It happens with illness and the way we handle illness. It happens financially. It happens in the jobs we accept, or the relationships that we cling to, or the values that we accept. What we accept about ourselves, or the dominant thoughts that we choose to cling to, determines our day's outcome and begins to set patterns which determine our life's outcome. We've all met those sunshiny people who have rainbows land on them all day long. Goodness bestows them. Even everything bad seems to turn out just wonderful. And we've also met those Eeyores. Remember Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh? Those people who, no matter what, life is just exceedingly hard, and they're going to let you know about it. The commonality is both expected what they got. And I know this from both angles, so I understand it. When I began to expect the best out of life, well, that's what presented itself. And I know you guys can say, well, Tom, you did just have the heart procedure last week. You did just rip open your leg a month ago. You're waiting to get on the transplant list. And all those things are true. But I also remember being told I wouldn't make it past my 40s. I remember at 47 thinking I'm dead. But here I am later, accomplishing every single thing. And those things happen. And I wish I could tell you that illness won't happen. But it's how you view it, how you handle it. You can heal and cure most things in your body until your body doesn't. I always remind people, Charles Fillmore did pass away. But it's the wholeness in the moment that carries on. And I'm always whole in every moment. You know, perhaps that's the idea of everlasting life, is to learn how to be whole when the body goes and the spirit remains. You know, I certainly believe that all these principles that guide my life do not end when my body does. We've already established that before anything was, it was spirit and principle. So why would I believe that after my body fades, that those things would go away? Those are the things that remain. And if that force is so strong, and I have that within me, then what I make of my life is infinite possibilities. And that's why I say each of us is infinite possibilities. This is what I'm talking about, that we have the spark of divinity within each one of us. You are spirit, which is unlimited. The only limits are those which you create for yourself. In each moment, there is rebirth of thoughts and cells and matters and ideas and all the things that create and evolve. We just have to let go of ego, that part of us that thinks it knows more. Because ego will tell you you cannot. Spirit will always tell you you can. What do you choose to listen to? Ego will tell you you don't fit in or something is wrong. But spirit is from perfection. The physical is ever changing and waning, but spirit is always perfect and moving into perfection. So which do you want to cling to? Ego reacts from things about ourselves that we may not like, or things others have told us. Spirit is always love, always acting and reacting in love. And the life we choose can be a reaction from that and a result from that. Remember, there is no equal and opposite reaction to love. Love brings about more love. And that's what moves humanity forward, including all in your life. Now, I've spent the past year or so telling you stories that reflect this. I told you about the motorcycle when I had it on my desktop. And I was going from dealership to dealership. And each salesperson trying to sell me one that fit them. I called the guy in Lebanon and he goes, well, I didn't tell him what type of bike I wanted, but I told him what I wanted to spend and what my monthly payment would be. So he called me back about a week later and he goes, I think I found a brand new bike for you. I didn't think I could afford a new bike, but I had that one on my desktop. And he goes, well, I got this one for you. And it was the same type that I had on my desktop, but it was green. So I went up there and then walked in, and he goes, well, because there was a mix-up. They didn't send the green one, they sent the black one, which was the exact one that I had been visualizing for months. These things happen. For the past year and a half, I've been walking out to the mailbox. I opened the mailbox, said, oh, I didn't get my $10,000 check today. Wouldn't think much, but I faithfully said that. My kids knew it, my wife knew it. I got an email Friday morning from my uncle in England. I had $10,000 sitting in an account that my aunt had left. She had set up an account to cover their house over there when she passed away, so my uncle could remain in the house and he didn't have to worry about the maintenance or any of that. And whatever was left over was mine. 10,000, the exact number I've been saying. He's still living in the house. So I turned it over to him. Said, that's not mine, that was left for your house. It wasn't about the money. That was there to teach me to hang on to faith. It showed me abundance and prosperity. I'm so abundant because I believe in every moment. Even if I didn't have a penny to my name, I am abundant in each moment. And that was just my way of showing the universe, thank you, the door's wide open, abundance flows both ways. All these examples I tell you, and I use for myself, is so that you can understand and feel this and know that I come from that spot, that I believe in everything I tell you. I want you to believe in your best life, your best self. Because you guys are unlimited possibilities every single moment. Don't let anything negative tell you otherwise, because that is a lie. We were born to be happy. We were born from perfection into perfection to live a happy, abundant life. Anything that leads away from that, whether coming from someone else or yourself, is not a truth. So recognize it as not a truth and go out and lead your best life. I'd like to take this into a meditation. I'll step away for a moment.
Holy Creator, we praise your name. Your will in heaven and earth the same. Supply our needs, Lord, from day to day. Let your forgiveness light our way. Lead us away from temptation's hold. Deliver us, Lord, into your fold. For all the kingdom, power and praise, will you begin and with you stays. Amen. Amen. Amen.
I hear our choir. Before I start the meditation, I ordered these a few weeks ago, and they're at their welcome table. But they're cards with the prayer protection on one side and the 5 principles of unity on the other side. I'd hoped to have them when I did the talk on James Dillett Freeman because of prayer protection. But things come when they come. But please feel free to grab one. And they're for you. So I'm going to ask everyone to find your comfortable position. Rest your feet on the ground, your hands in a comfortable position. Taking a deep breath. And begin a breathing pattern that works for you. We come together knowing that there is one power and one presence in the universe. God, the good, great, omnipresence. In Buddhism, there's a thing called the 6 perfections. These are 6 words that interact with each other. And they culminate in wisdom. Now they list each one. I would like you to take a second to think about each one and how it interacts into your life. Generosity. Does it flow to and from you? Discipline. Patience. For ourselves and for others. Effort. In unity, that is the 5th principle. It's not enough to know. We must do the work. Meditation. Do we take the time to just sit and to just be? Concentration. and wisdom. That unique gift that we have to look at our past, our present, our connection to that is good, our connection to love, and guide us towards the future. I'd like you to hold this thought. I am love. I'm going to ask you to come back to me. Begin to open your eyes and let the world return to you. Partly because it's a little distracted over the speaker and the basketball game. But I'd like to turn our attention to others that we know and those we don't know. At home, if you're thinking of someone that you want to pray for, I always encourage you to type their name in the comment box. And if you don't feel comfortable with that, their initials, or just a heart or a prayer or some loving emoji. And for those here, if you feel comfortable saying someone's name or initials, feel comfortable to say so. And I also urge you that if you're praying or thinking of someone, let them know that you're thinking of them. The fastest way to have a prayer land is just make contact with the person. Jimmy, have a great day. Doesn't take much. But knowing that they're thought of sometimes is enough to just change the rest of their day. I remember one time, I've told this before, we were at Whole Foods in New York. Guy walked by Casey, and he goes, thank you for your smile. And that just changed the trajectory of our day. And we were having a good time, but it became a great day. So for those people that we know and those that we don't, we affirm wholeness, health, and healing in their lives. We see them with love and wisdom, which we know is the image of God. For our world, from our local world, neighborhood, to our state, our country, and the whole world around us, we see you as whole, health, healing, united, moving humanity forward in a loving, nurturing way. Again, in love and wisdom, which we know is the image of God. And there's also another prayer that we do. I'm going to ask someone if they wouldn't mind doing the collection. So if you take it around, she'll play, then we'll do that. Thanks.
In this moment, in this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and see there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love.
Jasper, first, thank you for doing this. If people could repeat after me, we'll do a prayer of tithes and offerings. Divine love adds me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Amen. And I'm going to close out this service with a prayer of protection. And we will do the me version, even though I didn't write it out here. I have it on the card. So, in case you don't know, I mess it up every week. Prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The presence of God protects me. The presence of God watches over me. Wherever we is, God is, and all is well. Amen. And we are richly blessed. And then just thank you, and just join us for the final song.
Let there is peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Now there is peace on earth with God as creator. In oneness all are we. In love we walk with each other, in perfect harmony. Peace has begun with me. Let this be the moment now. With every breath I take, this truth is my joyous vow. Live each moment in love, each moment in peace eternally. Now there is peace on earth, and it has begun with me.
Hello. Tracy. Brenda. Nice to meet you. How are you doing? Feeling better finally? Yeah. Thanks. Oh, I guess so. I went to Florida 1 week, so when I was in Florida. Yeah. Do you live local?
Oh, what's it? Do you have a sensitive?
Yeah, I first became,
Yeah.
they,
We don't want to
they,
make it fun with you.
Oh, yeah.